This is the Sicilian Secret Diet Plan podcast, and welcome to an edition where we're very excited to introduce you to TJ Robinson, who is an award-winning chef and food journalist, and he's an expert olive oil taster. He's been described as having had a platinum palate because he can taste olive oil like many other people cannot taste. And while visiting an olive grove in Castel Gandolfo, Sicily, as a olive oil virgin, as he described himself, he became infatuated with the whole concept of olive oil harvesting and sourcing. And he now sources olive oil from all over the world. After experiencing the magic of this harvest and tasting fresh pressed olive oil, which in Italian is called novello, he has never been able to stop thinking of olive oil.
And today, we're going to learn why TJ hunts for the best extra virgin olive oils all over the world and what extra virgin really means. He will guide us in choosing the best olive oils. He will tell us how to best conserve them and know what is the olive oil expiration date or time. He will teach us how to taste and smell the complex aromas of the oils and how to best use them in our kitchen. We're going to explore the health benefits of this unique healthy fat, the liquid gold, and much more.
Without further delay, welcome TJ Robinson, the olive oil hunter, to our listeners.
Good morning, TJ. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to our Sicilian Secret Diet podcast. We're very excited to have you with us today. You bring Sicily to our table, and most of all, you're bringing that liquid gold that we all love, that is a source of life and health to all of us. So thank you very much for doing this, and we're excited again to have you.
Oh, that's
We are very interested in your history, how you started this, and especially the part from Sicily. So if you could just tell us and our listeners about that.
Sure. So my background is I was born in Asheville, North Carolina. I went to culinary school there. I went to pastry school and hotel school. And after that, I worked with the Biltmore Estate. I was the chef of the winery at Biltmore Estate when I was 22. Had a great opportunity to cook at the James Beard House at that age, and fell in love with New York on that trip. There were visiting chefs at Biltmore, and one of the visiting chefs was a gentleman who had several shows on the Food Network. His name was David Rosengarten, and he had taught me a lot. He was a great teacher on television. I had been watching his shows for a long time. And at Biltmore, we brought in chefs to introduce their new cookbooks and to do cooking demos at the winery, etc. I got to talking to David, and I really wanted the opportunity of moving to New York, and an opportunity opened up for me to become his personal assistant. So at 22, I packed a few bags and I made my journey.
Remarkable.
Yeah, so made it a journey to New York, and I had an amazing experience. David was a wonderfully creative guy. He was the food critic for Gourmet Magazine. He wrote for the New York Times. He wrote several amazing cookbooks that we did together. I headed up the tasting team of recipe development. So it was a lot of fun.
And for a 22-year-old, what a trip, what a journey.
It was. I mean, in those days, I think so many things were more unique to New York in those days. Like, you didn't really need to own a car. You could get food delivered anytime you wanted. Like, now, of course, around other parts of the country, there are Uber Eats and DoorDash, but those things didn't exist, 25 years ago when I first moved to New York. So it was a pretty unique experience, being a pretty green, Southern boy, moving to New York City. It was great fun, but I got to know a lot about food and wine, and I was invited to Sicily, actually. And on this trip to Sicily, I was invited to a farm by a guy named Mateo. And Mateo and I happened to be there at harvest time in October, late October, early November. And Mateo and his family invited me out to the farm. I had never had an olive harvest experience. Like being a Southerner, I knew a lot about, let's say, apples and what fresh apple cider tasted like versus, processed apple juice, from a can or a jar. Like I knew the difference in that, but I didn't really know that olives were a fruit at that point. And I didn't really know that olive oil is really a fruit juice. So I had a real...
Looks like tomatoes and cucumbers. They're fruits.
Exactly. So I had this great experience where I hung out with the family. We harvested olives all day. It was a lot of work. I realized how much trouble it is to get really green olives off of an olive tree. They're really hard to pick. Beating them with sticks and things like that and shakers to try to get them off. And
you don't want to mess them up.
No, exactly. You don't want to do that, which is
gentle way. Now will really rip the fruit. And
exactly right, because that causes degradation in the fruit and oxidation. So what we did, we filled these small bins, and during the day when it was sunny, we were on the most idyllic side of a hill overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. It was just so beautiful, kind of between Palermo and Trapani.
Yeah.
In Partinico.
Area well.
Partinico is the town. And anyway, we would cover the bins with olive leaves to keep the sun from hitting the bins. And then later that evening, so we loaded those in the back of a Fiat Panda, which are these, little workhorses that they use in Italy, kind of like, a little work truck. I don't know. A lot of them are even 4-wheel drive, but they're cars. And so we piled up these bins and we drove to the community olive mill. And there's a whole culture at that time of year, at harvest time. This is a season called Novello. And Novello is fresh oil.
Yeah, and oil. Novello means that is new
oil.
Things that every 2 years, the tree makes olives every 2 years. And so every 2 years, if you own any olive trees, we had a couple in our properties on Mount Etna. And so every 2 years, our trees were ready for it. And
the amazing things about these trees is some of them are over 100 years old.
Oh, I know. They're beautiful. I mean, the structure of the trees, a lot. And olive oil can be made every year. You're correct in the fact that olive trees in general are what are called alternate bearers. So one year you have a really good harvest. The next year, usually weak harvest, maybe half the production. So it does alternate. So anyway, we go to this olive mill, which is like my first experience of an Italian community and how dialed in they are to this time of year. Like all the families are there. They got their name written on their little olive, stack of olive bins, and they wait their turn to have their olives transformed into olive oil. So
what a beautiful community connection kind of event.
So you're talking about lifestyle, right? That embraces all the things that we promote for longevity.
It does. You're being outside, you're in the sunshine, you're breathing incredible air, you're getting great vitamin D, you're physically working to harvest the fruit. You're going to have a sense of community, love, compassion. Like they come together at the mill. There are people
competition who has the best olive oil.
Exactly. And also, like they're toasting bread for drizzling the fresh oil. So anyway, we wait in line. And finally it's our turn. They take our fruit, they put it in the mill, and we wait. It takes roughly half an hour for us to get some cups that look something like this. And I walk, so the Mateo and his family invite me over to the press, and the first drops of liquid gold start coming out of the mill. And into my glass appears something that looks like wheatgrass juice, like it's green. I smell it. It's like grassy. It smells like arugula and herbs. So being an American, I thought I knew what olive oil was. That was the problem. I really had no idea what olive oil could be the moment I stuck my nose in that glass and took a sip. And I saw bitterness and spiciness and flavor and aroma. I was so kind of, I'll use this word, pissed off that this product had been kept from me, right? I was a foodie, I was chef, I was well-traveled. But in America, somehow this product had been kept from me, and it really upset me.
And all those tastes that you talk about,
yes,
the bitterness, the depth of the taste, those are all polyphenols and phytochemicals that are we'll get into this, incredibly good for your health.
Absolutely. But in those days, I was not connecting this to health at all. I was a foodie. I only was in it for the food. I had no idea about all the health benefits. And we will get more into that. But at that moment, my life mission changed. I said, starting right then, I've got to get this to America. I've got to get this to my foodie friends in New York City. They have no idea what olive oil could be. In those days, we were producing about 3% of our olive oil consumption in California. So really 97% was being imported, mostly low quality bulk olive oil, commodity product from Europe. Even in the high-end bottle shops with fancy labels and that sort of thing, which there were a few of back in those days, those oils were coming over slow boat. They weren't, there was no harvest date on the bottle. You didn't know how old it was. So anyway, I started on that day on a mission to get olive oil, fresh pressed olive oil, to Americans as quickly as I could. And that's really just changed the trajectory of my life over the last couple of decades. And that's been my focus, building relationships, learning how to identify the great stuff, working with having a stable of amazing farmers that I could import. And so that's kind of how I got my start.
Well, that's DJ, you've helped me to take the lazy way out, because when we did our podcast on oils and olive oil in particular, I found you. And I joined the club. So now we all, as a family, get very excited every time the box get delivered with all information and the new oil. And I said, he's doing the work for me. I don't have to do it. He's researching it, and I trust him because I can read that he's doing exactly what I would do to search for the best olive oil. So I'm lazy with that.
Oh, no,
thank you, because bringing in...
But not only that, TJ, you have to be very proud of the fact that you're helping the health of thousands of people.
Yes.
There's really no other way to get these benefits than to get a high quality product like this. I mean, this is, and we look at it from a health benefits standpoint. I'm a cardiologist.
Yes.
I know it lowers your bad cholesterol, and the better the quality of the olive oil, the better that lowering is. And so that prevents heart disease, the number one cause of death in Americans. It's a big deal. It's not a little deal.
And I was getting, into the details of all the health benefits of olive oil. But when he says, we are looking at the health benefits and not just looking at the health benefits, that taste, that smell, I made, bean soup for lunch today, and I added a lot of ancient grains, and I can't wait to use one of these oils as soon as it's ready and pour it, the raw and the taste and the smell,
the aroma,
and the look, and how it changed the look of the dish, right? It changes.
But this
complements it.
This is the theme of what we promote in our book and in our practices. Our motto is live well deliciously.
Yeah.
So we really believe that, olive oil is a great example of this, but all the foods you eat that are delicious, if they're high quality, they're not only delicious, but they're good for your health. So it's a great combination. It's a win-win in terms of health.
The synergy, right? The synergy. And you talk about the fat makeup of olive oil being so important. There are also a lot of research being done on the polyphenols in olive oil.
Right.
And there was actually a researcher from, I believe it's from Pennsylvania, who was studying his research in the lab, or his life was ibuprofen. His name was Jerry Beaucamp, I believe. And he visited Sicily. And what he identified when he tasted fresh olive oil, he happened to be there at harvest time the way I was, he noticed when he tried fresh olive oil, it gave him the same sensation of ibuprofen in the back of his throat. And he started doing research on the compounds found in fresh olive oil and learned and actually named a compound that is very much akin to ibuprofen. So, the olive in general has
anti-inflammatory effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beyond that. There's an additional drug class called COX-2 inhibitors, and they're even stronger than the ibuprofen class. And olive oil, the polyphenols in olive oil, have been shown to be as strong or maybe even stronger than COX-2 inhibitors. And so it's a natural way to lower inflammation. And now we know inflammation is at the basis of all disease: heart disease, dementia, cancer,
depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
Well, chronic illnesses too.
So your family, Sandra, taking this back to Sicily, like the olive tree really gave them life. Olive tree in general has been used for food, for medicine, for light. And think about all the cultures that came through Sicily. You've got the Greeks, the Phoenicians, you've got the Arabs, you've got Sicily is very unique compared to the rest of the Italian diet, as I'm sure that a lot of
this is our whole book. Our book, The Sicilian Secret Diet Plan, is based on the different cultures that have invaded and lived in Sicily for hundreds of years. And each one of these cultures has affected the cuisine of Sicily. So it's not only a Mediterranean diet, it's a very unique Mediterranean diet.
It is. It's a melting pot, right? It's a melting pot. And special things like pistachios are amazing pistachios from Bronte.
Yes.
Really health promoting as well. Olives. So the olive trees in general, they're old. They bring life. They really are a very important nutrient for not only old people, but also for children and babies, even breastfeeding mothers. Like the olive tree in general and the fat makeup in olive oil is very much akin to human breast milk. When you look at the ratios and the fatty acid profile, it's really interesting. And really good olive oil almost becomes a lot, and you guys have talked about this on your podcast before, but it makes things more bioavailable, especially fat-soluble vitamins.
Correct.
So when you drizzle a little high-quality olive oil on top of a salad, arugula salad with some lemon, you're getting more nutrients out of that than you would if you
getting the vitamin K that you wouldn't have normally been able to absorb.
Yeah, it's interesting. The fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin D, for instance, I as a functional medicine cardiologist, I measure vitamin D levels in my patients. And many times I see low vitamin D levels. And even though they're taking a vitamin D supplement, and then I tell them, take it with a little bit of olive oil.
Yes.
To see the vitamin D levels sometimes double. It's amazing how much of an effect that can have.
That's fantastic. So basically your family, Sandra, the trees you had in your family when you were a child, like with your grandparents, were they part of your heritage? Like your family had a grove, and did you take part?
We had a house that we used to go in the summertime on the Etna because there was no air conditioning. So one was our air conditioning, right? It was cold there. So we used to go there. And in this house, we had a couple of beautiful olive trees that we climbed during the summer, and then we harvested in October. But when we came to United States, my mother used to bring to us in her carry-on suitcases, 10 liters of olive oil every time she came. And that was the perfect and most beautiful gift that we could have. She brought...
This was before 9/11. You could bring liquid.
That's right.
Before 9/11. All right. And
Well,
it was, there was nothing better than that. And that oil, like you described that color of the oil, the way we see it is gold, but in Sicily, when it comes directly out of the press, is green.
Yes.
And
yes.
that is the oil that she used to bring. It was green.
So you knew what fresh olive oil tasted like. You understood the flavor differences. I did not. It really took me some time. I brought it to America. My friends were like immediately, I was probably the first person other than your mother to bring it in boxes, already bottled direct from Sicily at harvest time. So the next year I worked with the family and I said, look, I got to get, and I bought 3 olive varieties from them because in Italy, there are about 550 olive varieties alone. So think of that as like grape varieties in wine, like a Merlot is different than a Cabernet Sauvignon. So these olive varieties and there's some general like groups, and they've adapted to different climates. For example, where the area where you're from in Sicily has incredible varieties of olives there. One of the ones is an Etnea variety. The Messinese Etnea is a wonderful olive variety. And just south of there, closer to Siracusa, is a wonderful variety that is just really green and beautiful and fresh, that has all these green apple flavors. So all these olive varieties in different regions where they're grown in these microclimates give them unique characteristics. So to be able to appreciate those, you have to have the olive oil while it's fresh. And so what happened for me is that my friend said, TJ, this is the most amazing thing. And I want more. And I said, well, you're going to have to wait you got to wait a year, because olives are harvested one time a year. They're a fruit. We flew them in by jet. People had them in time for Christmas, fell in love with them. But by March, they were gone. So I started to do some research. And I learned that Italian immigrants, Spanish immigrants, and Greek immigrants who traveled to other parts of the world, specifically the New World in the Southern Hemisphere, they took their lining of their clothes and they stitched in their neckties olive cuttings, olive branch seedlings, so they could take their grandmothers, their grandfathers, their great-great-grandfathers' trees with them to the New World. So when the missionaries from Spain went to Chile, they planted olive trees there. They needed it for religion. They needed it for health. They needed it for really everything. That was their culture. So that happened in Chile, Argentina, specifically on the other side of the world, in Australia, in New Zealand, California. So what I started to learn, and how I actually formed a club with a quarterly shipment cycle, is I started sourcing, traveling, and building relationships with farmers on the other side of the planet, which has the opposite harvest time of the Mediterranean. So I traveled to...
Beautiful is that?
It's wonderful. I mean, it's a really cool story. And I can just see people, boarding these boats, when the great, famines were going on, and, all these things, when they just, they were starving, they wanted to, leave and go to the New World and start a new life. And they, wanted to take some of their heritage with them.
And think about the wisdom, right? That they carried with them, the wisdom, like we were talking about olive oil being sprinkled on food so we can absorb all the vitamins and nutrients that are there. If you sprinkle on fish, you're going to get more vitamin D from that fish that you don't. And they knew somehow all of that. It was in their DNA. So they protected the most, the healing plant that they had, and I know a lot of people also brought fig plants, into, they which is another place of health and health support. But they had that wisdom and they carried it with them and they brought it with them. And then you rediscover it.
Yes.
You rediscover the wisdom.
Yes, because
Together.
yes, essentially this fresh olive oil, you can only have one time of year at harvest, and it's good for about 6 months. I mean, then the polyphenols, those antioxidants, the things we're going to taste later when we taste the olive oil, they really start to dissipate by about 50% in the first 6 months. So really most of the olive oil, especially 20 years ago that we were getting in the United States, was a very low quality. And olive oil in general has been like a slippery business for a really long time. So there is a lot of, when there are a lot of hands involved between the farm and the consumer, when there are too many cooks in the kitchen, there leaves a lot of room for a lot of bad things to happen to your olive oil. So my mission has been to be the single link in the chain between the small family farmers that I work with and my club member. And I am very meticulous and highly fastidious about every detail. And so that's my job. That's what you're paying me to do. I'm part olive oil sommelier. I'm part olive oil concierge. Like, it's my job to be detail oriented. So you get the very best flavor and the very best representation of that harvest, because with the moment you harvest the fruit, it's perfect when it's on the tree, especially perfect if it's early harvest green fruit, which makes a big difference. And anything you do to it from that point forward has a pretty much negative effect, right? So I work with producers of olive oil who are highly skilled at knowing when to harvest the fruit, how to harvest the fruit, how to work it very quickly. They're very meticulous, and also they have machinery, mills and presses that minimize oxidation. And when you minimize oxidation, you get less degradation of the health qualities in the final product. So anyway, it's been
that's, TJ, I noticed that in some of the, this is fantastic what you do, and the oils, every single one of them we love. But you do make some blends, and why do you do that? And
yeah, so like I was telling you, olive varieties, they're like 600 and some, 550 in Italy alone. Which is, one of my favorite places to work with olives. But essentially, I told you I was a chef, right? And when I was a chef, my specialty was sauces. I was a saucier, what the French call a saucier. So I would make incredible sauces to go with fish or, salmon, whatever, all kinds of roast stocks, and making demi-glaces for beef, and all kinds of wonderful sauces. And the way I see olive oil, high quality fresh pressed olive oil, is as a sauce that Mother Nature made for you. So I work with Mother Nature. I take her ingredients that I get. So when I show up at a farm, usually when I land in a country, I do a very large brand tasting. I have my stable of farmers. My buddy Cheered goes ahead of me. He speaks fluent Italian and Spanish and 5 other languages. He's Dutch. But he goes ahead and gathers samples. He does a big road trip. He goes from Palermo and works his way around Sicily and drives north up to Rome. I land and I do a grand tasting. I usually taste around 50 oils from different farms. And then I identify who has amazing fruit and amazing oil that season. Because even if you find an olive oil producer that you love, the seasons are so different from season to season that doesn't guarantee quality. So for me, I have the ability to shop around with my producers. And
You're an expert at tasting olive oil.
absolutely.
So what is it? I mean, this is akin to being a wine sommelier.
Yes.
What is it that you're looking for? I know you mentioned this, the
Yes.
taste, but can you describe what you're looking for when you're tasting a good olive oil?
Absolutely. And we will definitely go into that deeper. You taste the oil, but there are three things you're looking for. One is One is the aroma. You want it fruity and really fresh, vibrant, lively, looking for things like grass, green banana, or just, freshness. And we'll go through lots of descriptors as And then on the palate, you're looking for that freshness as well. You're also looking for bitterness. Bitterness is telling you it's from very early harvest green fruit. So that's super important. And then the last thing you're looking for is spiciness. And this spiciness tells you it's fresh. So bitterness tells you it's green fruit. Spiciness tells you it's fresh. So those are the quick and easy things that you learn when you become a professional olive oil taster, that you learn to look for and identify. And you also learn to identify what are called defects in the oil. Defects, when I taste an oil, a final oil, it tells me the story. I know everything about that olive oil at that point. I know if the fruit was low quality when it was harvested. I know if it sat in the sun too long. I know if the mill wasn't clean. I know if it was processed with high temperatures, which gets you more olive oil, but also lowers the health benefits and the flavor.
You want the pressed extra virgin olive oil, right?
Absolutely.
What exactly is extra virgin olive oil? What is that? I mean, we hear about these words like, our listeners, we always tell them to use extra virgin olive oil. What exactly is that? And cold pressed.
Yes, absolutely. So extra virgin is the highest category of olive oil, and it's only contains oil that's extracted mechanically. So there's no heat involved. There's no chemicals involved. Like, for example, light olive oil. People talk about light olive oil, like it's somehow healthier for you. It is not light. It's the same caloric load. It's just been stripped with hexane gas of all of its polyphenols and the only thing it is fat at that point. So stay away from light. So there's extra virgin, that's at the top, and there's light down here. In the middle, there's virgin. There's lampante, which is another classification. But really, for all your listeners, you're focusing on extra virgin olive oil, and you want a high quality extra virgin olive oil.
What about the filtration? Filtered or not filtered?
Filtering, it's in the early days, I was a unfiltered guy, and I was that way for probably, I don't know, maybe a decade. I thought that was more natural. I thought it was like the way to go. And then the research started coming out that when you see a bottle of olive oil and in the bottom of it, it's very cloudy and you see like a little bit of water in the bottom, what is happening in the bottom of that bottle is fermentation. Fermentation, because there's wild yeast, just like on grapes when you harvest those and they create alcohol. The same in olives. The wild yeast are on the olive fruit. So what you get is actually negative benefits. Unless, there is an unless. If I were in Sicily and I could consume the olive oil within a month, fine. Happy with unfiltered, no problem. But if you want something that's going to have a beautiful shelf life, the standard today for the highest quality olive oil is lightly cotton filtered. And that's what we do. We use cotton filters. It's paper, essentially.
I really didn't know this, right? And this information, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah, because I was telling you, kind of as a professional taster, you learn to assess these defects. When you smell an olive oil, you're looking for the smell of olive brine. If it's briny, that's a defect. If it smells like wine, that's a defect. If it smells musty or fusty or rancid, these are all defects that a professional taster learns to identify that tell you there were problems in the process. So in the US, unfortunately, the government here is not really tracking extra virgin versus virgin and that sort of thing, and the quality markers in olive oil the way they do, let's say, seafood or things that'll really kill you, like beef and stuff like that. So we've really been a kind of a dumping ground for low quality olive oil.
Well, it's not just olive oil. This is another premise of our book. It's quality of food. In America, a lot of people think grains are bad for you. The longest living men in the world are from Sardinia, Italy, and they're diet at 70% grains. And that's because the grains they eat are different from the grains that we have in America. So the quality of the food, and this is why we love your product, is high quality. The other thing is it's in a dark glass bottle. Can you talk a little bit about the dark glass bottle and plastic and olive oil that's in plastic bottles?
Yes. So olive oil, there are a few things that kill olive oil. They kill the health benefits of olive oil. One is light. So light kills olive oil. So if you go into a market when you're shopping, you always want to look for dark glass, ideally, or dark plastic, which is starting to happen. That's better than clear plastic because it's just baking under the fluorescent lights. Terrible for olive oil, and also for sunlight to hit olive oil. Not a good thing. So light, time, so it gets rancid over time. If you start with a high quality olive oil that's high in antioxidants, it actually protects the olive oil and preserves it even longer, which is why my oils are fantastic for at least a year. So we talked about light, we talked about time. The next thing is temperature. You don't want to hold your olive oil near the stove or above your stove because that also kills olive oil. And oxidation, getting air is the other thing. So when you're shopping for olive oil, you always want to look for a harvest date. Like our bottles, they're direct from the harvest, so they're from the most recent harvest. A lot of olive oils in the grocery store aren't labeled with a harvest date, so it's very important to look for harvest date if it's not there. Not just the expiration date, but the harvest date should be, and that's not a day, right? It's a season. And
right.
And then I blend the olive oil. So I may take something from one farm and I talk about different olive varieties and I blend those to make a really harmonic sauce. And what I do, I create a trio with a mild, a medium, and a bold profile. And I'll use different olive varieties to do that. Sometimes on the farm, it'll be a kind of a mixed bag on the farm, just the way they planted it, because it can cross-pollinate and all those sort of things with different olive varieties. So it's just a farm blend. It's how they planted the groves a couple hundred years ago. Other times, they're harvested as single varieties, and I can go in and I can blend different olive varieties together at that farm to create something. It's like composing music. It's like creating harmony in a product.
That is one of the things that is in my memory in Sicily. If there was a tree that was, dying not well, getting sick, what they did is they brought a piece of another tree, they made a cut, an incision. They took a part of the tree out and they called it innesto. They added the piece of a healthier or different kind of tree to make the blend that you're talking about, or to heal the plant.
Oh, that's cool. So, yeah.
And then they would graft it, and that was a wonderful healing process. Again, the wisdom that was sent from one generation to another generation, that we are also afraid that is going to die right now. We're watching this expertise dying, and that's why people like you are such a value to our heritage as humans.
Yes, absolutely. And it is. It's really sad to go in these communities in the hills of Sicily and see all these empty apartments. People they send their children to college, they go to Milan, they go to Rome, they go to Naples, and then, they start building a life then. And it's like, do you want to stay here in our office and work on a computer? Or do you want to go, back to work in the hills in Sicily, long hours, bad weather, no good internet, and it's like, it's really been, had a very negative impact on a lot of these historical villages in Sicily. I'm really happy that internet connectivity has gotten a lot better in the last few years. People are starting to remote work from smaller villages. And there are groups of people who really see this as an important part of their heritage in Sicily, that they are rebuilding those communities. And basically, because there are a lot of abandoned olive groves. Like it hurts my heart to think of abandoned olive groves, but it'll be like my children. But, it is, they're starting to recover and rejuvenate the olive trees. And that's very unique and very special. And I'm really happy to have a hand in being someone who can afford to buy a top quality product, because that's what my club members ask me for and are requiring. So I'm able to pay the farmer for very early harvest, high quality fruit, much more than they could get as a commodity product. Because
and talking about the price, right? That the price is important for people to know that you're paying for quality and you don't need much in order to get the health benefits. And now that we're getting into the health benefits, we're going to find out how it's just a little bit, to like 2 tablespoons of olive oil per day.
Yes.
Significantly make a big change in your health. So,
yeah, I mean, the health benefits are enormous. But before we get to that, I want to just touch on the fact, again, we recommend high quality foods, and plants, the quality of the plants, like olives, comes from the soil.
Yes.
And what's your feeling about organic versus non-organic? And also, you source these from places in the world that probably have incredibly good soil. So the quality of the food comes from the soil. That's where the quality of the olive oil comes from. So what's your opinion about that?
I wish I could have a solely organic olive oil club. That would be a dream. That would be so nice for me. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Olive trees in general don't need a lot of human intervention. They survive for thousands of years happily with no fertilizer, no external anything, sprays or whatever. So luckily for me, the olive tree needs very little of those things. And B, my focus is on freshness, not organic. And most of the small farmers I work with are not able to go through that certification process.
Exactly.
They're more focused on being sustainable, biodynamic farms where they are reusing, let's say, with the harvest, because when you make olive oil, the oil you get from the fruit is only, let's say, between 10 and 25% oil. So 90 to 75% is waste. So what do they do with that? They take that back in the grove and they use that for fertilizer on the tree. They basically are very much about sustainability. And all these chemicals that are sprayed these days are also very expensive. So olive farmers who work off of very thin margins in general, they aren't actively going out there. It's not like broccoli or something like that like all the bugs want to eat. There's nothing like that. So yes,
that's what we recommend our patients and our friends and family here is learn, even in America, go to a farmer's market, get to know your farmer, and, pick the farmer, and don't use these foods from these factory farms, which,
the soil is depleted.
Yes, absolutely. But there's so many minerals or so many vitamins that come from the soil. I mean, it is we do have quite a few organic oils that the farms happen to be organic. That's not one of my first classification. I'm looking for the most health promoting, high polyphenol, fresh, beautiful olive oils that region is producing that year. So for me, that's always, so organic would be wonderful. And a lot of times they are, but they're not certified, but not all of the club oils are organic. So I do a lot of lab testing on the oil. I use the best lab in Italy, down in Bari, and I send all of my olive oils to them for a third-party certification. And I get, so they're independently certified as extra virgin, highest quality. And two, they're also evaluated by a tasting panel. So they test them in two different ways.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
By chemistry, to have a real extra virgin olive oil, it should be certified in two ways. One should be by chemistry. So they're looking at the olive health, like is there a degradation? They're looking at different, they use tools, laboratory tools, to identify low quality oil. So it needs to be certified from chemistry. And the other thing is it goes to what's called an olive oil tasting panel. So this is a group of people, and I've been part of a panel, but this is at the lab. There's a group of members that are certified tasters by an independent organization. And what they do, they actually score the oils. They look for those defects. If there's a defect in the oil, it would not be considered extra virgin. They would also assess the fruitiness, the bitterness, the spiciness in the oil. And that shows up on my lab report. And also, I have a third report that is analyzing the polyphenol counts. So, for example, in the third oil that we're going to taste today, when I had this tested in late November when it was harvested, and my club members had it in December, the polyphenol levels on this one were around 660.
Wow.
Which is really powerful. So
This is what is helpful from a health perspective, is the phytonutrients, polyphenols in olive oil. And it's been shown, I have a list of publications from PubMed, and I have olive oil as one of the keywords. This is for years. I must have thousands of articles on the benefits of olive oil. And it clearly reduces risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, amazing stuff.
Arthritis, ulcer.
In fact, it lowers cholesterol as much or better than some of the drugs we use for cholesterol. So it's it's an amazing food. Food is medicine. This is probably overused, but it's definitely food is medicine. It's a
particular food that is a very good medicine. So olive oil is a good medicine, and we can start talking about the health benefits. And you were talking about the polyphenols content of the olive oil, and I know that it can range from 50 to 150, right? So the range is pretty wide depending on the soil, the kind of a plant that you use. So that olive oil that you describe is really incredible. The effects. And we apologize that our dogs are participating in the podcast.
That's okay. That's okay. I did an article for my newsletter recently about olive oil and pets. A lot of people and a lot of pet food companies are now putting olive oil in the dog food. I'm like, oh, fantastic. I mean, because they have arthritis too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's really, really interesting from dogs and cats to babies. It like when you were a baby and you transitioned, Sandra, from let's say milk, your mother's milk, to table food. One of the important things that Italians do when babies start eating real food is they add olive oil into puree.
Always. Always the first thing you do.
In fact, we just did a podcast on this subject transition.
Oh, cool.
And, we talk about that.
I love it.
Adding that olive oil. And I did that with my kids. When I transitioned them, I started always, even, you start transitioning by adding one simple food like an onion or potato. But in any food that you start introducing, you always had that olive oil.
Yes. Especially for even colicky babies. There's some research about colicky babies and those anti-inflammatory aspects that we talked about that are known in olive oil. It's a miracle food. I mean, it's a God-given miracle food. It's a beautiful food. And if we can, it's kind of like peaches. You can have good peaches, like okay peaches, but when you can find the farmer who harvest their peach really at the right moment, when it's full of flavor and it's the perfect season and it's a perfect variety of peach, when you bite into that, and that's like the greatest peach of your summer.
Well, I always bring this up. There's a memorable peach I had in Sicily. I think I was like in heaven for like a few hours after I ate that peach. It was like, but I completely agree with you. And I think our taste for food relates to the quality of the food. It's very much connected. We have an amazing ability to taste quality and to taste things that are good for us. And this is why, when olive oil and all other quality foods, you can really
chocolate, high quality bittersweet chocolate, coffee, like there are things that are bitter so Americans aren't so, in general, and this has changed over the last couple decades, but in general, Americans really didn't care for foods that were bitter. And when I say bitter, I mean things like very charred coffee or super dark chocolate. Like Americans in general, us health seekers and health promoters, we're all about those kind of things. But general standard American diet eaters, they don't really care so much for bitter things like spicy arugula. They'd rather have iceberg probably. So for me, as an olive oil aficionado, I have to train my club member I have to reestablish what they consider to be good olive oil, because they've consumed for most of their lives really poor quality stuff. So for me, I have to introduce people. I can't tell you how many emails I get from people. Well, it's not that many, thank God. But, basically, I got my olive oil, so excited to taste it. It tasted like grass, and it tasted like it was so bitter, like green tea and walnuts. Why was it so bitter? This has to be rancid and so spicy. And I'm like, oh gosh, that's the hallmark of healthy olive oil. You're telling me it's like retrain.
We have a 30-day plan in our book. And part of what we tell our patients is that during this period of time, your taste buds actually have to change, because if you've been eating a standard American diet your whole life, that's expected that your taste buds are going to be anatomically different than what they should be. And it'll take time for it to change, for you to appreciate this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Things that we discovered in our research is that the babies learn how to taste from the diet that the mother had while she was pregnant.
Yes.
Foods that the mother prevalently ate during pregnancy are the food that the baby will search and will react positively to when you introduce the solid foods. So can you imagine how much damage you can do during pregnancy, and how great benefits you can give to your child and to your baby if you manage a healthy diet?
Absolutely.
And one of the really good benefits, especially from a mother to child, and also olive oil, is the microbiome. It's our healthy bugs in our gut, the monounsaturated fats, the polyunsaturated fats, the phytochemicals that are in olive oil and good foods. Really, we're learning now about how important this is. And it's very important both for our general health and our mental health and our, immunity and all these things. So it's a We don't really believe in any superfoods, although I think olive oil is as close as you can get to a superfood.
Yes.
But we think of a super way of eating, a superfood way of eating, a combination of things that really get your health promoted, in a wonderful way.
But talking about the health benefits of olive oil, what the olive oil does just to the microbiome is amazing. And the studies that are coming out, just introducing olive oil into your guts improves the microbiome health significantly. It kills the bad bacteria, promotes the growth of the good bacteria, and with that improves insulin regulation, lipid regulation, and
it kills H. pylori. We don't have a good drug that kills H. pylori. H. pylori is the organism that causes ulcers in our stomach. And those ulcers can cause both stomach cancer and esophageal cancer. And olive oil has been shown with various studies to kill H. pylori, which is great. We don't have a good drug for that.
As a cardiologist, you were probably telling people 20 years ago, olive oil, take it for your heart. Like, it's good for your heart, right? Everyone, let's say 20, 30 years ago, was focused on health, on the heart and cholesterol. Well, now, really what we're learning, as you've discussed, is there's the microbiome. There's a huge connection there, because when you heal the gut, you actually start really absorbing more nutrients from food you're consuming. There's brain health, the Alzheimer's. There's so many studies related to Alzheimer's and dementia.
Olive oil does that, right? The olive oil protects most likely from dementia by reducing the tau proteins, the beta amyloids. And so we don't have a drug right now that promotes that. But we have olive oil that does that. And, there are incredible studies on rats that show that you can improve once they do the biopsy, they are on the brain, that the amyloids, the tau proteins have actually been reduced just by introducing olive oil in the diet. And the olive oil also improves cognition.
Yes.
Large studies that have been done with elderly patients, you introduce olive oil and cognition improves.
About
tests of cognition.
Not only that, stroke rate, there's one of the biggest randomized, the best studies in medicine are randomized controlled trials.
Yes.
One of the biggest randomized controlled trials on the Mediterranean diet was done in Spain. It was called the PREDIMED trial.
Okay.
It showed and Spanish participants are already on a good Mediterranean diet to begin with, much better than Americans. But all they did was they just delivered olive oil to people's homes. They consumed the olive oil and they reduced their risk of stroke, heart attacks, and all-cause mortality by 30%. It's an amazing effect.
Yes. Cognitive improvement by 40% just adding olive oil to an already Mediterranean diet. And so you can see what the benefits are extraordinary. And the same group of people that where they added just nuts and not olive oil, they had an improvement by 18% versus 40% with olive oil. So nuts are great. 18% is statistically significant, but olive oil is dramatically different.
That's right. And olive oil is it's kind of like chocolate. You can go out and you can buy a Hershey's bar. If that's all you can afford and all you can get your hands on, you're getting some chocolate, I guess, and maybe some benefits of chocolate. If you can afford it, you move toward dark chocolate that's organic and maybe a 70%. And then if you can really find single origin chocolate that's like 70+% and single origin high quality chocolate, basically you're paying for a higher level of quality. And olive oil is accessible. Like, if all you can afford is the stuff at the grocery store, learn to read your label, look for a dark bottle, look for harvest date, look for a store that has high turnover rate, look taste the olive oil, learn to know what it tastes like, if it's good or not, which we'll go through all the quality identifiers here in just a couple minutes when we try the oils. But go for stores where you can taste the olive oil before you purchase it. So olive oil is accessible to everyone at every price point. It's kind of like wine. When you can buy wine at the 7-Eleven, you can go to a wine shop, you can go to the grocery store. But really, if you want the most quality product, you've got to go and have a connection, that relationship that you talked about with the farmer at the farmer's market. That's essentially what I am. I'm your liaison to the small family farmer who then flies it in by jet to America and sends it directly to my club members' homes. So it's an automated thing. They're always getting high polyphenol olive oil. They're always getting the tastiest olive oil on the planet. They're getting the freshest olive oil on.
Like we said before, it's a very small amount that makes a big difference. So we don't need to swim in olive oil, but 2 tablespoons a day is enough for health and benefits. And then, of course, if you want to add a little bit more for taste, absolutely do that. But the other great benefits is on the skin. Right? If you put extra virgin olive oil directly on
I know. Look at your skin. You're like glowing. You're glowing. I love it.
See the biggest difference that makes, a healthy diet, exercise, and olive oil on your skin.
When we were kids, we used to go to Italy, and a lot of my family members in Italy used to use olive oil instead of sunblock. They put olive oil as a suntan lotion.
Sure.
For the skin. The skin would really respond nicely to it. And then this goes back to the way our philosophy is that you have to enjoy your life in order to live well. It's you can't just take medicines and you can't just do things for your health unless you enjoy them. And we're learning that coffee, for instance, all the bioflavonoids in coffee, if it's high quality coffee, is great for you. Like you said, chocolate, olive oil, it's a wonderful way to stay healthy.
It's great too.
That idea of being on a diet, which is so daunting and so, feel like you're being put in jail somewhere.
Yeah.
This is diet comes from the Greek word, diet, which means lifestyle. Right? If you embrace the lifestyle, that's what the diet word comes in. Instead of we are looking at diet as something terrible. Diet is really a way to live a healthy, happy life with delicious food. We don't need to deprive yourself of anything. You can.
All right, let's get to the tasting. I can't wait to taste this stuff.
I know, me too. Now, related to diet, there's something interesting related to satiety. They have learned that high quality, high polyphenol olive oil has a very high level of satiety. So we actually feel fuller, longer when we consume a little bit of olive oil prior to meals. So there's quite a bit of research on that too. You guys should dig in.
Yeah, there's something we talk about called nutritional intelligence, and satiety is a big part of this. When you eat the correct foods, why do we eat? We eat to get nutrition. We forget that part. Yeah. That's the only reason why we eat, is to get nutrition for ourselves.
That's right.
And once our cells get the nutrients they need, and if you have, nutrient dense foods, and olive oil is definitely part of that nutrient density, then your cells become satisfied. Your hormones, the hormones that make you satisfied, go up, and you can lose weight.
That's right.
Or if you not lose weight, your body just goes to where it should be. We don't really believe in a diet for diet's sake. We believe in eating the right foods, and your body just naturally goes to where it should be.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are doing such a good job educating people and bringing them into this world. Really, it's important for people like you that are really putting it out there about the quality of what you're consuming, the happiness level. Your body will feel satisfied when it's getting wonderful things. There is an adaptation period. Like you guys are doing all the right things and educating. And, it's people like you that have really helped me grow the club. We now work mostly with health and wellness influencers, podcasters, people who have very influential mailing lists. They help us build our club. So it's very important that people understand and are communicated to about the health benefits of high quality olive oil. So thank you guys very much for your work. You guys have some tasting glasses. We've talked so much about olive oil. I really got we have to taste now.
Well, this is my favorite part.
So every quarter, as I told you, I'm a chef. I do a mild, a medium, and bold oil every quarter. So you have them lined up in order, and we will taste them in order, starting with the no end. This is actually a Greek olive oil that's from it's a mono varietal. It's a single varietal called Amphisa is the olive variety. And this oil, we can, so you have your cup. So what we're going to do as a professional assessment, we take a tasting cup and we pour about a tablespoon in the bottom of the cup. So for you guys sharing, you maybe need a little.
The color of this oil.
No, it's beautiful. And it's already, the aroma is wafting out of the glass already.
You can see the color there. It's amazing.
And the smell.
So step one, when you assess olive oil, so what we do, we take our hand and we put on the bottom of the cup, and then we put our hand on top. And what that does, that warms the oil. And when you warm the oil that way, it releases all the aroma in the oil. So I just kind of move it around a little bit. I move my hand. I smell fresh grass. I smell baby lettuce. I smell herbs. It's very fresh. So number one is a smell test. Number one is a smell test. Looking for those defects. Does it smell rancid? Does it smell winey, briny? Does it smell like nothing, flat, like crayons or something like that? You don't want that. You want something that's alive and vibrant, real early harvest, which means they pick the fruit really early, and it's got a very low amount of oil in it, typically about 10%, versus if an olive hangs on the tree, it goes from green at about 10% oil inside. If you leave it hanging on the tree until it ripens and get black, it'll get maybe 20% oil, 25% oil, and the quality of the resulting oil is not as health promoting as it ripens. So most producers are paid on quantity of production. They're paid on by the liter. It's a commodity. It's in the newspaper. That's how based on the season. So the olive oil in general is not set up for a commercially health promoting product. It's set up if you have bills to pay and you have a mortgage and kids in college, you want to let your olives hang on the tree longer so you get more oil to sell by the liter. So
right.
Crazy people like me who say, no, I want you to get it green. I want it to be difficult to get off the tree. I want it to have very low amount of oil. And when you do that, you get all the power of the plant in the actual juice. So that's why there's a big difference in what you pay for a very early harvest, super potent olive oil versus a ripe, buttery style olive oil that you might find in your supermarket. That's like more of a commodity product.
Right. Well, this is super helpful information for us, because this is really key to this.
Absolutely. So what you're smelling when you smell, and I will read you some of my tasting notes so you guys can smell this. So in my tasting notes, I give a card that looks like this. That I talk about how to pair this olive oil with food. But I say on the nose that this is a delicate oil. It's pressed from Amphisa, grown exclusively in central Greece. This oil delivers the alluring scent of fresh tomato, new mown grass, green apple, kiwi, green walnut, wild mint, fennel, celery, parsley. those are all the descriptors I had for this oil.
So think if you put this in a soup, you're deepening that flavor in a way that you could never do if you add some butter in it. That you can never, it can never be.
Never.
And
Never.
I remember in Sicily when we made those bean soups, lentil soups, they said you have to swim in olive oil. You have to swim in olive oil. And of course, we're not going to do that for other reasons, because no, 1 tablespoon of olive oil is about 90 calories. So if the beans swim in olive oil, you're going to get a lot of health benefits, but maybe more calories than you need. But probably then it was useful because calories were not as abundant, right?
No.
Necessary thing. If you were going to work in the fields, you needed the bean soup that swam in olive oil in order to function at your best and to fight diseases.
And then plus the taste is amazing. Like right now, I'm used to this. You know, we make Sandra makes bean soup all the time. If I don't get that little round thing of olive oil in the soup, it doesn't do it for me anymore.
I know. So, all right, let's taste this, guys. So what we're going to do, we're going to swirl it around. We're going to smell, which we've already done. We're going to now take about a teaspoon and we're kind of going to chew it a little bit. We're going to sip about a teaspoon. And it's going to kind of chew it. I'm pulling a little air in like a wine taster. I wouldn't recommend that. Just chew it. And this is the mild oil of the quarter. So you're going to notice mild bitterness. You're going to notice things like walnut skin, that little bitterness. You're going to get just a little tickle in the
I feel that.
You're going to get a little spiciness, right? So this oil, it's kind of like when you're pairing pasta shapes with pasta sauces. You use bolder, big, let's say rigatoni with a big sauce that has a lot of personality. If it's a very delicate, like baby cream sauce with peas, use a very delicate pasta. So it's the same with olive oil or with wine. You want to pair lighter olive oil like this, that's a little bit milder in profile, with milder foods, such as a delicate fish. For this one, I said it's very food friendly, great with mild cheeses, marinated olives, rustic breads, rice, beans, and other pulses. Sweet potatoes, this one's fantastic on sweet potatoes. Squash, eggs, poultry, pureed soups, creamy pasta dishes, mild vinaigrettes paired with fruit or potato salads, Greek-style salads, or tender greens such as green beans, mushrooms, peas, fennel, carrots, mild fish or shellfish, and it's also a good choice for baking. A lot of people don't know that you can bake with olive oil. They're using a lot of health-demoting seed oils. Seed oils are not good. I'm sure you guys have discussed that. I'd love to, hear your opinion, Sandra, on baking with olive oil, because I'm sure you do it.
I bake with olive oil a lot, and depending on what I'm making, sometimes I can completely remove the butter from the recipe and substitute, and sometimes I just do half and half. And always you want to use a very milder olive oil. You don't want to use the boiled olive oil with a lot of acidity, because what we just tasted, and that's something we didn't talk yet about, the acidity of the oil. I think it has to be around 8%, right? And that is a little bit what you taste when you put it in the back of your throat, a little bit.
Yeah, there is some confusion around that term, acidity. Acidity is really is it measuring, when we talked about the chemistry profile of olive oil before, if the olive oil if the olives have a higher level of degradation, they're damaged in some way, it leads to higher levels of acidity. And for something to be extra virgin, they want a very low acidity in the oil. So it's not necessarily something you can detect like with your palate necessarily. It's not like acid in a vinegar or something like that. So I wish I could give you a way to, like, help you differentiate those. But, that really what you're perceiving with this is bitterness, and the spiciness is the polyphenols. And you'll see that as we ramp up. It's not necessarily related to acidity.
Yeah, just to go back on the seed oils, as you mentioned, a less amount of seed oils, because seed oils are high in omega-6, and high omega-6s cause inflammation. So that's one of the reasons why it's a good idea to avoid seed oils. Now, this brings us also on the topic of cooking with olive oil. What's your opinion about that?
So, yes, there was a company that imported olive oil to America maybe 50 years ago that said you are required in your kitchen. First of all, they learned that they could sell olive oil to Americans, especially immigrant families. So, they found that they had buyers of a product in America. 2, they said you need 2 olive oils in your pantry, not just one. One is for cooking, one is not. So they were able to sell Americans 2 different olive oils as opposed to one, automatically doubling their sales. So they started to educate people, saying, don't use extra virgin olive oil for cooking. It's a bad thing. Completely fake, completely false. You really want to focus on high quality olive oil, extra virgin olive oil that has high levels of polyphenol levels. What do those polyphenols do exactly? When you heat olive oil, it's oxidative stress on the health benefits of the olive oil. And what happens when you have a high quality olive oil is it actually protects the oil while it's being heated. So there are studies being done that mostly related to what are called polar compounds that are created when you heat olive oil.
Like burn point?
Burn, yeah, smoke, etc. And these, specifically, when you cook with olive oil, let's say in Leandro Ravetti in Australia, and I happily send you this study, did a test of frying with different seed oils versus olive oil, and then tested these polar compounds. And olive oil, high quality extra virgin olive oil, performed the very best out of all of the seed oil to have the lowest amount of those polar compounds, which are health depleting. So there's absolutely no reason you cannot cook with extra virgin olive oil. You don't need virgin versus extra virgin. In fact, like my morning eggs, I love fried eggs for breakfast. And what I do, there are some tricks, right? So my trick for cooking with olive oil is I do things in a little bit different order. So this is where you have to pay attention. So you want to take your pan, say for my eggs, I put my pan on my stove, I warm my pan, I get it to medium. Let's say that's the point where I'm ready to add my eggs. Once my pan is hot, notice I did not add any olive oil yet, which most people do. They add the oil to the pan and they put it on the stove and they let it warm up with the oil just frying and burning and whatever in the pan and getting depleted, right? We talk about heat depleting olive oil. So what I try to do, I heat my pan, I then add my olive oil after it's nice and hot, add my oil, and immediately add my eggs. So really fast. And what that does, it keeps the oil from sitting there and cooking and oxidizing. And I also stay at about a medium heat for my fried eggs. And I actually taste that oil when it's on my plate, and it tastes fantastic. It tastes just as good as it did coming right out of the box. So it is important that you, whenever you're cooking,
like your oil.
Yeah, don't, pay attention to your oil. Heat your pan first, add your oil, add your food. I don't like, add the oil, go to the fridge.
I know what I'm having for breakfast tomorrow.
Olive oil, fried eggs, and
Yeah, me too. I love it.
All right.
Another important thing, like olive oil fried eggs versus butter fried eggs is a completely different experience.
Different thing. And scrambled eggs too. I love, like, that first oil is great for scrambled eggs. So the next oil we're going to taste is from Abruzzo. This is from an amazing miller who is like a slow food, the #1 farm in the slow food guide in Italy. This guy is incredible. Claudio Di Mercurio, it's his name.
We're the best slow food. It started in Italy. It continues to be stronger there, has now come everywhere, but not many people know the slow food movement, which is exactly what we're doing, exactly what you were describing in cooking those eggs. It's the slow food movement.
That's right. That's right. So Claudio, so there are guides. There are guides in Italy, just like you would buy a wine guide, let's say a Wine Spectator magazine, and look at rankings of wine and their competitions. It's the same in olive oil. So most of the farmers I work with are ranked in the top 20, 30 producers in the world. So one of the main Italian guides is called Flo Sole. And Flo Sole ranks different farms every year. They submit their oil, they're in a blind tasting. And so I work with mostly top-ranked farms around the world. So this guy, Claudio, there's two. There's Gambrio Rosso, and there's also the Slow Food Olive Oil Guide. There's 2 olive oil guides that Claudio is always ranked at the very top tier. He's one of the best producers in Italy. So he's from Abruzzo, which is a region that is not a lot of people travel to. It's just across, that'd be east of Rome, on the other coast. So let's do a little smell test on this.
We learn what to do.
Yes, you know what to do. Yep. Don't do it.
The color of this oil.
Yes. Now, professional tasters actually taste in blue glass.
Okay.
Do professional tasters taste in blue glasses? It's to disguise the color. Color is not actually an indicator of quality.
Really?
Okay.
Different olive varieties have different levels of chlorophyll in the olive oil, and that leave a final result in the olive oil. So you could have a yellowish, not artificially yellow, but you could have like a golden oil that's still super high quality. It's not a black and white. There's a big gray area there. So that's why professional tasters, for competition, we taste in blue glass. Now, you will get lots of green characteristics out of an early harvest oil. So we're going to smell this one. Now, this is 100% Drita, which is an olive variety that's grown just in this little village in Abruzzo. So it's an olive variety called Drita, Britta.
How those reminds me so much of the olive oils that I smelled and tasted in Sicily.
It's definitely in that same...
Brings it home much more closely.
Oh, I love that. I love that you have this history. Most of the people I talk to don't have this history that you have with olive oil. And I love that. That's so special that you're able to discuss it in a way that's so close to your heart. I love that. So this one, I say it's aromatic in the tasting glass with fresh grass, walnut, green banana, chicory, lettuce, orange peel, wild mint, and fennel seed. So that's when I say some of the aromatic notes. I mean,
this is like aromatherapy. I just breathe.
It's a beautiful. I mean, but most people don't know that olive oil can be this. It's a totally different product in most Americans' pantry. They don't know what olive oil has the capacity to be. And that's really fun to be able to introduce people.
And then re-educate your taste buds, like we talked about.
Exactly.
And that's all that is doing. Like we're tasting this, it's healing my esophagus, my stomach, and my gut.
Your heart, your brain, your skin.
My cholesterol is improving my good cholesterol, is managing my blood glucose, and is helping my cognition and possibly preventing dementia and Alzheimer's.
And making you happy.
And making you happy, which also is very important to our health. So let's cheers and taste this one. Let's take a little sip and chew on it. See what we think. So this one, you're going to notice more bitterness. This is medium oil in the trio. You're going to notice some more bitterness. You're probably going to get, oh, there it comes. There's some latent spiciness coming, a little peppery in the throat. I may cough a little bit. When I was tasting it, when I was a young boy tasting in Tuscany, the family said, TJ, be careful. This is a 3-cough oil. And I'm like, 3-cough oil? What do you mean 3-cough oil? They're like, well, these healthful polyphenols, and really we didn't know what they were back then, but that's just how you knew it was early harvest and fresh and very healthy, is it should make you cough. So I was like, really? Like, because when it comes right off the press, it can be very, it can bite you in the back of your throat. So I love that Tuscans say, is it a 1-cough oil, a 2-cough oil, or a 3-cough oil?
That kind of stuff.
This one I would probably call like a 2-cough oil. Like it's definitely, there. I feel it.
Feel it in my throat right now. And but I can see how some of your customers can send you that email, said, what does this? And my brain knows this is the oil that I put in my soup. I love it. This is gonna really, really get to the depth of that flavor. My brain is getting very excited now.
Absolutely. So I say in this one, it has the sweetness of almond, the astringency of green tea, the bitterness of endive, wild mint, basil, a little spinach, a little mineraliness. In fact, I'm going to take another sip. Spinach and fennel. I taste a little fennel in this one, like that cleanliness mingled with a spicy bite of fresh arugula. So this is
if you think about it, that these, when you say almond, I can actually taste the almond. In Sicily, the almonds tend to be more bitter than the almonds that come from California. So you can really taste that. The cough is coming. That almond, the bitterness of the almonds, they're so typical of that area that live together with the beautiful olive oil.
So we've got fruitiness, we've got bitterness, we've got spiciness. We also have this harmony, right? The oil's very integrated. You taste things that are a little sweet. You taste things that are a little bitter. You taste things that are just fresh. And that is a beautiful olive oil. That tells you it is really like the best, right? The best. And when you're investing in something in your health, there are very few things in the world that you can get the absolute very best of for, I think, what is a value. Like my club members get these oils. They either join for the half-size bottles, 3 of those for $99, which typically lasts them about 3 months. Or they get the larger size bottles for $139 for 3 bottles. And that lasts people typically about 3 months. They use about a bottle.
Not at our house. Not at our house.
I'm okay with it.
The bonus size I get, I don't get with it.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But really what you're getting for that price point is, imagine if you were to go out and buy the very best, let's say Grand Cru French wine, the greatest red wine in France. You're talking like $5,000 a bottle, right? But to get the world's best olive oil flown to you by jet, delivered to your house, 2nd-day UPS for 3 months supply for $139 is honestly an incredible value. I'm like, for all the health benefits of the olive oil.
Well, you're saving money. You're going to save money on the back end, when you don't get sick.
Invest now or invest later.
Right, exactly.
That's the principle. All right, so the third one we're going to pour up. Now, this one is very green. You're going to see that when you pour it. It's very green. It is, I'll hold mine up, Cameron, try not.
Yes.
Pour it. There you go. This one is very green. Now, this one is the bold, right? And you're gonna, when you stick your head in the glass, you're gonna smell it. But this is also a single varietal olive oil. This is spicy, so be careful. It's very bitter, and that's again 660 parts of polyphenols in this one. So it's the healthiest oil in quotes in the trio. And I do have some members who are like, only send me the bold oils because that's what I like. Now, most of the time, people tiptoe their way to that direction. They start, and they like having the variety in the kitchen because bolder oils you pair with bolder foods. So this would be great with like a grilled steak or a heavy, let's say, arugula salad, or a salad like an antipasto salad that's got lots of, prosciutto and things like that in it, where you want a bolder flavor. You want to pair that with a bolder oil. So
in the club, you can choose to have only the bold oils?
You can. I really don't love people to do that, but I will do it. But it's best to really have this culinary arsenal in your kitchen so that when you're making
the first one, you can really use for baking, right? So you want that you want to have that choice. And
absolutely. But let's say this bold one, or even the mild one. I don't know if you guys eat yogurt, but if you eat like Greek yogurt, you could drizzle a little bit of
yogurt
on yogurt. Like fantastic.
Oh, and I make my own hummus, and I put olive oil on top of the hummus.
I can't have hummus without fresh olive oil. Like it just doesn't compute anymore. Like, what's wrong with this hummus? But when I put fresh olive oil, it's like creates a different product.
I used your olive oil when I made my last batch last week, and it was amazing.
Oh, good. All right, let's do a little smell test on this one. So I say I love the nutty nose. I smell green almonds and hazel, followed by chopped baby spinach, Tuscan kale, and watercress, tomato leaf, green apple, thyme, lemon zest, dark chocolate, and green peppercorns. That's what I smelled on this one. Now, it's alive. It's always changing. So now let's take a little taste and see what we get. Oh, yeah. There's our friend. Dandelion greens. It very much reminds me of dandelion greens. I say, there's going to be the spice. It's coming. Muscular and intense mouth, reminiscent of escarole, radicchio, dandelion greens, kale, rosemary, lime.
Coming to life.
Yes.
Talking.
Exactly. Lime zest, hazelnuts, and cocoa nibs, like that bitterness of cocoa nuts. Health-promoting polyphenols are indicated by the spiciness of black pepper. I feel those polyphenols dancing on my tongue. and the spice. And that is what you're looking for. And I say exploit this oil's best qualities by serving it with strong cheeses, avocado toast. One of my favorite things with olive oil is
great
avocado toast. Black bread, salads made with sturdy winter greens, grilled lamb, beef kebabs, crudités, bean and chickpea bruschetta, tomato-based pasta dishes, pizza or flatbreads, oily fish like salmon and mackerel and sardines, chocolate mousse, cake, or brownies. Like this one pairs beautifully with chocolate. It could be as simple as making a box of brownies. Buy like a high-quality Ghirardelli box of brownies, and instead of making it with canola oil or vegetable oil, which is what it says to do on the box, use fresh olive oil, and those brownies are going to taste amazing, and they're going to be health-promoting as well. So, you don't have to get fancy with fancy recipes. Just one of my tricks is whenever I set my table with salt and pepper, I bring my olive oil to the table. I literally, and your family did this all the time as a kid. For you, this is a foreign concept.
The oil and vinegar, thing was brought to the table every time because everybody would add, it doesn't matter how much olive oil there was, but that fresh olive oil, that drip,
Yeah, we know people that bring little olive oil and vinegar with them when they go to a restaurant. I'm going to start doing that too because you can never find good olive oil in restaurants.
No, because they buy the lowest quality stuff possible. Usually it's blended with seed oils, which makes it even worse. And they put it on all your food. So and bottled dressings and salad dressings that you buy, they're filled typically with really bad fats and stabilizers. So it's so easy to make a vinaigrette. You just simply take olive oil, and in a restaurant, you say to them, I'd like some extra lemons for my water. They bring those to you. You squeeze lemon, you drizzle olive oil, you've got vinaigrette. You've got a health promoting salad.
I have a suggestion as a promotional item.
Yes.
Little club travel olive oil canister.
Believe me, I have tried, and I come up with so many different ways of trying to figure this out. To how my wife carries it in her purse. We get a small set and a large set every quarter, and the small set normally she keeps in her purse, and we take it to the restaurant, and we say no added oils, and we drizzle our food. Because even though we may be getting some seed oil, it's really nice to be able to put a fresh health promoting oil on there as well. So it feels good.
And the taste improves. I'm thinking about that oil right now in making a great salsa verde.
Oh, yes.
Oil, and how all the flavors will come out. And if you think about it, talking about the health, the benefits of something like that, right? That you have a beautiful fish and you make your salsa verde, and you have those capers and anchovies and parsley and garlic and this beautiful olive oil, you're gonna live to be 100.
Well, not only that, this combination, this Salmoriglio, which Sandra makes, it actually
fish sauce.
The fish sauce. The olive oil, the garlic, the parsley. It takes the mercury out of the fish. It's amazing.
Wow.
It's a chelating agent. Even the olive oil. So it lowers the mercury level of fish.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, all those things you ticked off the list are very health promoting, right? The herbs, all the flavonoids and all the polyphenols that are in those plants. Like this bitterness that we're tasting is a protection. This is from the olive tree. This is to protect the plant. And these are, like we said, a lot of health benefits. And you can use olive oil. I say this to people all the time. High quality olive oil can be the backbone of your healthy cooking. In Sicily, they keep things quite simple. In Italian cooking, you don't need to be fussy. You got to focus on the quality of the ingredient. So just take something as simple as a steamed piece of broccoli or a steamed green bean. You lightly steam the fresh green bean, the haricot vert. Let's say we get the bag from Trader Joe's in the fresh section. You lightly steam it. You remove it. You put it on a plate. You drizzle it with fresh olive oil. You sprinkle with a little Sicilian sea salt, which gives you great texture and great flavor and great minerals. And you serve it. There's
You chop some
Three ingredients.
some garlic and put it in there. Some fresh garlic is also a lot of.
It's very, what you're saying is very important. We studied the centenarians and supercentenarians in Sicily, and supercentenarians are people that live to be 110 plus.
Wow.
So what is interesting about Sicily and in a lot of countries in the Mediterranean is that the poorer people actually live longer than the people in the cities. And that's because they eat like this. They eat simple foods. Yes. It's the opposite of America, where, the poorer you are, the less you live. But in Italy and in Sicily, they eat these things. Like for dinner, they'll have steamed vegetables, a little olive oil, and maybe some fish. And that's it. The very simple dish.
Boiled egg, something like that. And that was our dinner for, all the time that I lived, because, the main dish, the main meal was at lunch. So it was always steamed vegetables with olive oil and maybe a hard-boiled egg and a piece of bread. And that was it. So But, another great dish that is Sicilian is the orange and fennel salad that
Oh, yes.
in the winter. And if you think about that, visualizing orange with olive oil, it's hard to visualize, but it's the most delicious thing. You add fennel, you add orange, you get some anchovies and sprinkle with the salt, the pepper, and
So
this beautiful olive oil, and you have yourself a health-promoting winter salad.
yes, I love fennel and orange salad, and even for breakfast, I was just in Spain and I had toast with olive oil and some very thinly sliced orange for breakfast. Fantastic. The orange just kind of like that sweet orange just kind of melts into the olive oil and into the bread.
Vinegar on top of it.
Well, TJ, thank you. You're very generous with your time. And this is, I could go on for another hour talking about.
You guys are fun.
But there should be some recipes to go with that.
Sure.
And so actually,
we really appreciate this time. And we'll, all our patients and our listeners are going to be super interested in your company. So we'll do this again at some point.
Absolutely. We did set up a very special option for people to taste oil, so they can do an in-house taste test to get a bottle of the oil and to check out the club. They need to go to the URL getfresh62.com. Getfresh62.com. And if they do that, the number 62, they will get a bottle of oil. This is for your listeners only. They'll get their first bottle when they join the club. So they just have a trial bottle for $1. So they can do their own at-home taste test versus what's in their pantry. See if the club is a good fit for them. They can cancel at any time. There's no commitment to buy anything ever. The main thing is trying the oil and educating your palates, because that's really what we're doing. So please go to getfresh62.com and you'll see a very special offer for just your listeners.
Great. We'll put a link to that in both our podcast and our YouTube.
Thank you.
Because we want to promote health together. And the more people like you we can invite and be part of this, the health journey for earning together, right? So thank you very, very much for your time and this beautiful sharing of this information.